So, welcome.
I've got a fire alarm going off.
Oh, your sound for me, please, Chris. That'd be lovely.
Do you want me to mute it? Sorry.
Please. All right, wonderful. All right. And I am one of the committee members, and today I'm going to be your host. This webinar will be recorded as there were no objections at the time of booking. And what I'd like to do is just do a little icebreaker, get you all using the chat. So I've got a little question for you. Where in the UK are you? Now, when I was actually looking at all the people that had actually booked, some people weren't actually in the UK. So I just want to know where you are. All right, so if you could actually just start typing in the chat where you are. So we've got somebody from London, SE16, Nottingham, Edinburgh. Okay, wonderful. Anybody else? Inverness. Okay. Oh, Stirling, London. So we do have somebody from South Africa then. Okay, that's you, Johan. All right, wonderful. Uxbridge, London. So quite a few of you from London. Musselburgh. Okay, where's that? Okay, Christine. All right, wonderful. Well, okay. I'm going to move. It's in Edinburgh. Okay, lovely. All right, thank you. York. Okay, brilliant. I'm going to move on to the next slide, and I'm just going to ask you, for those of you who have travelled out of the UK, do you recognise this picture? Do you know where this is in the world? Okay, I'll give you a little bit of a clue. They speak French. Okay. Do you want to type in the chat where you think this might be? Small little island. No? No clues whatsoever? Okay, this Reunion. It's Reunion. And the reason why I put that in there is because for my holes, I don't know if most of you know, but I went away somewhere close to Reunion, and this is the place. Where do you think this is in the world? See, nobody's putting anything in, got no idea either. Yes, it is. Well done, John. It is Mauritius. Fantastic. Okay, I've just got one more. Okay. I've got one more. Okay, this place is nowhere near Mauritius. It's a bit closer to us. Okay, so where do you think that is? What are they famous for? They're famous for, I suppose, pasta. No idea. Okay. Yes. Thank you, John. It seems like you're getting it all right. Okay, well, fantastic. Okay. Tim's clapping. All right, so I'm going to move on, all right, and just tell you a little bit about the Digital Capability Group if you don't know about us already. So what we do, our activities involve sharing best practices at conferences and through Twitter, webinars like today's 60-minute tech talk, survey results, we publish them, we announce them at different conferences, and our forum. Okay. So this is what the forum looks like, and if anybody would like to join the forum, if you haven't joined already, there's the link at the bottom. I'm just going to drop it into the chat as well so that you could click on it, but there you go. So there are forums, there are people that join. I think we have over 120 members at the moment, and lots of discussions and topics going on there. We have a blog and all sorts of stuff, so it's for you to investigate and find out. But we also have a page where we keep all our recorded webinars. So you can see that we've got quite a few there in our archive that you can have a look at. We share best practices again, as I said, through the 60-minute tech talk, and we are always looking for volunteers who would like to share their experiences on projects or on hot topics, and maybe a demonstration on some new software. So if you're interested in taking part in the 60-minute tech talk, then please just contact me. I'm at lbarclay.sgul.ac.uk. All right, so today we're going to be talking about MOOCs, and I always get this mixed up. It's massive open online courses, okay? And today we have two guests. We have Chris Rowell from Regents University London, and we also have Tim Neumann from UCL, okay? But what else do we do? What other activities? Well, we have our conferences, and we have a conference coming up very soon. It's a Spotlight on Digital Capabilities, #3, and it's called Student Futures, Equipping Students to Thrive in a Digital Age. And the tickets are on sale. So if you want to buy some tickets, I'm just going to drop the link into the chat again, all right, so that you can click on that and go to the website. We'll tell you more about the conference, but it's going to be held on the 24th and the 25th of May at the Spark, Southampton Solent University. Okay, so buy your tickets as soon as, because the last two conferences really sold out quickly. Okay. All right, so I think that's me done. So what I'd like to do is to introduce our first guest, Chris Rowell, from Regents University London, and he is going to talk to you about his 12 apps of Christmas. So Chris, can you unmute yourself so that I can hear you?
Hi there. Can you hear me, Lorraine?
Oh, yes, we can. Yes, I can hear you loud and clear. Okay, so over to you, Chris.
Okay. Okay, I've just brought up my slides, so hopefully everybody can see them. I am going to talk about the 12 apps of Christmas and my experience of running a CPD MOOC. I've called it a CPD MOOC, but actually this is kind of a story of an accidental MOOC, really. I work here at Regents University as a Deputy Learning Technology Manager, and part of my role, well, main part of my role is to do staff training, help staff with technology, all sorts of learning technologies. And obviously a key part of that is mobile technologies and the use of apps in teaching and learning. And a couple of years ago, I used to run little workshops introducing new apps. And although people were very interested, lecturers were really interested, the attendance of them was really bad. You know, I'd maybe get 1 or 2 people turning up. But when I spoke to lecturers outside of the workshops, people were very enthusiastic. They wanted to know more. And constantly the thing people were saying is, well, I don't have the time, I can't make these workshops. So that's why I came up with the idea of running a sort of online course that would introduce, initially, really just I was aiming it just at lecturers. So they would just get a taster of an app, go in and have a look at it. So that all happened in 2014. Basically, I built the course, and because here at Regents University we use Blackboard have an additional site that's designed specifically for MOOCs. So I built the course on the MOOC platform, which is called Blackboard Open Education. And I initially advertised it really just within the university, so you can see in front of you, here's a poster from last year's course. I literally just put a few posters up around the university. I tweeted it out using my account, and I got about 40, 50 people signed up for the course. And then I thought, well, why it's open platform, why don't I just put it out there and see if anybody else wants to join. So I did. I advertised it first of all on CEDA's emailing list, the Staff and Educational Development Association's list, and then I put it onto Alt. And then within a week, I had like 500 people on the course, which came initially as a big shock, because I really wasn't prepared for those sort of numbers. And then, I mean, the second time I ran it, it was much better. I was prepared for it. So I'm going to talk mainly about this 2015's version. In that, I had over 1,000 people, and then last year the numbers have gone up again, and it went up to 1,400 and something. So really, like, I was a bit shocked. So anyway, it was a great experience. I know that's a bit of background, but let me just get into it and talk about the course a little bit more. So quickly, here's some stats about the 2015 version. So I had 1,500 people, over 1,000 people enrolled. Over 400 of them completed the pre-course survey. I had 910 comments on the discussion boards. So I'll come back to that about the discussion boards. Most of the people had heard about it through a friend or colleague. In terms of the gender split, which is interesting, 78% of the participants were female. They were mainly based in Britain, so you can see predominantly 83%, whereas a small percentage from Europe, and then a significant proportion from Australia as well. And those percentages increased. So 2016, I had over 10% from Australia and New Zealand. The participants were mainly librarians, lecturers, and learning technologists. And the age group, the biggest age group, was the sort of 36 to 45. Most of them were interested because they just wanted to think about integrating apps into their professional practice, really. But actually, and that's the last bit, the last fact is quite interesting, nearly 30% of them had not actually done an online course before. So that's some of the stats. They've changed slightly. Last year I had a bigger percentage of lecturers join the course, so they are now the biggest proportion of people actually doing the course. As it was a course, I had proper learning outcomes. So the whole aim of the course was to basically trial an app, get people to reflect on it, once they'd actually used it, and then crucially, the whole point of the app was, of the module, was to get people to discuss the possibilities for using an app in their teaching, learning, or in the library, or wherever they were based. So those were the learning outcomes. In terms of the course design, I won't go into loads about this, but what I was aiming to do was try and keep the course really simple. So I had a kind of basic template. So each app introduced itself by what it actually is. So what can the app actually do? I asked the participants then to download the app onto their smartphone or their tablet, and then there was a 10-minute activity. So you can see this is an example that I've taken from the 2015 version. We use Slido as one of the apps, and that's the basic structure that I followed every single day over the 12 days of the course. And then, because it had a Christmas theme, you can also see there's a little joke. We had a joke. It's a bit small, the writing on there, but so you can see the joke of that particular day was, how many ears does Santa have? 3, a left ear, right ear, and Rudolph the red-nosed reindeer. They were all equally as bad as that one. Moving on. In addition to that basic structure, we then had a further task section. So that was moving beyond the 10 minutes to making more complex tasks, to actually introducing case studies and ways and other things that they could do with the app. And then we had a useful resources section where there were links to articles or journal articles or websites or videos. But crucially, and again, like all MOOCs, the main bit was the discussion board. So we had a discussion board for every single app. Here's the one on the Kahoot app from last year where we posed some questions, and that was the biggest part of the whole course. Was, again, as somebody who is a facilitator on the course, was going through, checking the discussion boards, making sure that we would answer every student's questions. On this version, I think there was something like 1,000 posts from the participants, and I know in the 2016 version we had something like 2,000 posts over the 12 days on the 12 apps of that particular version as well. So that's a high degree of maintenance, or from our point of view. Things that don't just run on themselves. It takes the facilitators to intervene and to take part in those discussions and sometimes push those discussions along. I know there's quite a bit of debate about the role of facilitators in MOOCs, but that's what I wanted to say on that particular bit. In terms of the breadth of apps that we used, we tried to use a mixture of different things. In the last couple of years, we've actually had 13 apps because we've had a day zero where we asked participants to download the Blackboard Mobile Learn app, which is the new, and there's a new version of that out at the moment. So we had presentation apps, we had ones to do with communications, ones to do with collaboration, ones to do with actually live streaming. So that gives you a selection of the different types of apps. The free iterations of the course, we've done 12 different apps. Okay, in terms of the next shot, this is quite interesting bar chart. It shows, and this again from 2015, looking at the website, the Blackboard Open Education site, it gives you quite a lot of back-end information about the participation rates of what people are actually doing. So you can see these are the total amount of hours spent on over the course of the 12 days. So looking, I'll ignore day zero for the minute, but I mean the first day of the course we had something like 281 hours of the participants being logged in on that first day's activity. So I mean, that's probably overestimated in some ways because people just tend to log in on the site and then are not active all the time. But it maybe underestimates it as well because it doesn't count the amounts of hours that people are actually on the app as well. But you can see there's a sort of general trend as things drop off over the course over the 12 days. And that's very typical for most MOOCs. But even so, even, you know, over the last, you know, you can see over days 9, 10, 11, you still got a significant degree of participation into the course as well. The other key aspect of the course is, and again, I really didn't have time to go into this in loads of detail, but I did a fair amount of evaluation of the course as well. So at the end of the course, we had an end of course survey, and again that was very well. Very well. There was a high degree of participation in that as well. So I had over 400 people filled in the end of course survey. Again, that's just a little screenshot from one of the questions showing that 26% thought the course was excellent, another 47% good, and another 20% okay. Only 3% thought it was poor, and no percent thought it was very poor. So that was very pleasing. I had a few open-ended questions where I got some really nice feedback about the course. So as you can see, I've just put up 3 of the little quotations up there, which won't necessarily go into. But I wasn't just interested with what people's reaction were to the course, because this was a CPD course. I actually followed up the evaluation with a not just an end of course evaluation, but a post course evaluation survey as well. So actually 3 months after the course finished, I sent out a questionnaire, really trying to find out whether the course had actually impacted on the participants' professional practice at all. So again, it was quite pleasing. This was a separate survey that I sent out using SurveyMonkey. I got 103 participants, which is not bad since it was 3 months after the course had finished. I've given you another little screenshot of one of the questions. So one of the questions, have you gone on to integrate some apps into your learning, teaching or research since Christmas as a direct result of the course? And 20%, over 20% of the participants had said yes to that. So again, you know, it's quite pleasing to get that type of feedback 3 months after the course. I also followed it up with 13 interviews with participants on the course as well. And again, it's quite difficult to give that feedback in the course of this presentation, but certain themes came out of those interviews. And I've listed some of those themes just on this slide here. So things like they really like the Christmas theme, they love the opportunity for collaboration, both in the discussion boards and especially using, I use part of the course had a big element of social media to it as well. So running outside of the course, although I certainly didn't expect everybody to participate, we had a Twitter feed running in the background as well. So we had some really good discussions on Twitter using the hashtag 12 apps of Christmas, 12 AOC. So that was really nice to see that working outside of that, and certainly the interviews talked about that in some sort of detail as well. My last couple of slides, I'm not sure how I'm doing for time, but seem to be okay at the moment. Just to mention a few tips for anybody who's thinking, not necessarily running a MOOC, but running maybe a similar course, a similar CPD type MOOC, is that you need to think about certain things. And I'd come from it. No, I hadn't sort of done MOOCs anywhere else. And suddenly I was up and running and doing one. First of all, they are very time consuming from a facilitator's point of view. The first year I ran it, I ran the whole course with 500 participants, with virtually myself and Andy from the library, just the two of us as the main facilitators. And that was quite hard just because we have, you know, I have a busy full-time job. So whilst the discussions could take place asynchronously, it was still difficult to come in and catch up with discussion, go back to my job, then go on to Twitter to find a discussion on that as well. So in subsequent years, I've given myself more time, but also looked at other ways of time management during that. Also, a crucial aspect of it is think about the course design. I think the design of MOOCs will vary, and maybe Tim will talk about his in relation to his discussion, but simple is good for me in terms of keeping a simple template as we move from one app to another. Keeping some continuity between that design was really important. So not trying to do too much. It's very easy to put lots and lots of information up on the MOOCs, but actually what we're trying to do, or what I was trying to do, was develop collaboration, develop online discussion, develop a discussion around the usefulness of these apps, you know, in a sort of authentic workplace situation. A couple other things, motivation. Again, like most MOOCs, the participation rates fell off. That was only to be expected. But as a facilitator, we started to think about that. How do we keep people engaged? One little example of that was we ran a little competition. I think it was using the Animoto app, where we asked people to produce something. They shared it, and we gave sort of some nominal prizes out for that. But that wasn't just a fun thing. That was to think about, you know, the motivation levels. What would bring somebody back the next day or the day after? Why would they want to come back? So that was us thinking about motivation. And then the other thing I would definitely recommend is to try and develop a team. So basically, the more people I could get involved with it, the more facilitators I had, the easier it made for me. So when I ran last year's version of the course, I think I had about 10 or 12 facilitators and allocated an app to a facilitator. And I became more of like a team leader or a project manager, where I was coordinating the facilitators and they were doing the work of interaction with the participants. Okay, so those are some of my top tips. Moving on to my last slide. If anybody's interested of running their own particular 12 apps of Christmas, I have a WordPress blog where I've collected lots of useful information and a step-by-step guide. So there have been a number of other universities that have ran their own version of the 12 apps, and they've done it in different ways as well. So it's made for interesting variations on the course. So Brighton University have done one, University of West London, I think Manchester Met, Ruskin. They've all done different versions with different apps, probably those apps more tied into their own institution as well. Okay, there is it's not live, that link at the top, but if anybody wants to find it, I can probably put it into the discussion board. But if you go there, you'll see that particular site, which has got lots of useful information on there. Okay, all right, that's me done. Thank you very much. I'll try and go back now to the discussion board, see if there's any questions in there.
Okay, thank you so much, Chris. That was wonderful. I can't believe how successful it was to have so many people sign up, and for you to continue and to build such a big team as well. I just want to find out from anybody in the audience whether they've actually created a MOOC, or I don't know if you want to call this a CPD MOOC. Has anybody ever done that at their institution? If you just want to type in the chat and let us know. Okay, it doesn't look like anybody has done. Yes. No. Well, we have. Well, yes, Tim, I know that you have. You're going to talk soon. Who else? Let's have a look. I think I missed some people. Okay, so Sheetal. Okay, so yes, you've done it at SGUL, at St George's. Yes, and Trupti. Yeah, you've created MOOCs. Okay. So most of you have done MOOCs rather than CPD ones. You've actually done the massive open online courses. Okay, wonderful. Oh no, Sheetal says it was a CPD accredited. Okay, all right. Simon, okay, Gothic and EU ref. Okay, all right. So what we're going to do is we're going to move on to Tim, and let Tim tell us about his experience and why we shouldn't exclude the VLE for, you know, MOOC platforms. So I'm just going to pass you on to Tim. Hello, Tim.
Hello, Lorraine. Okay, so shall I just start? Yeah, I take this as a yes. Let me just quickly activate my video. Hello, everybody. I'm Tim Neumann. I work at the UCL Knowledge Lab, which is effectively a small research part of UCL where we are looking at digital technologies for teaching and learning. But I'm also associated with UCL Digital Education, which is the central e-learning support team. And I'm actually faculty-wise based in the UCL Institute of Education, where I am leading a small team of learning technologists, which is our learning technologies unit. So I am focusing on a MOOC approach to staff development. And what I mean by that, well, we'll see this in the next 10 to 12 minutes. If you have any questions or comments, and please feel free to use a text chat. I might not be able to look at it all the time, but I can probably address this later. Let's first go through some definitions. When we are talking about MOOCs, what do we actually mean by that? We can refer to a format, we can refer to a platform or to an approach. In terms of formats, you might still remember the early discussions around XMOOCs and CMOOCs, but often some people think that video platforms such as the Khan Academy or even Linda are kind of MOOCs because they are massive and they're bundling videos into course units. But then lynda.com, for example, or it's LinkedIn Learning now, I think. It's not properly open because institutions need to pay a license for you to get full access. So various parts of the MOOC acronym might not be represented that well. But if you really start to think about what MOOC as a format really means, then it becomes incredibly convoluted, and the definition of what a MOOC is somewhat vague, really. However, there are also, when we're talking about MOOCs, then people instantly have an XMOOC in mind that's running on one of these platforms like Coursera, edX, FutureLearn, iVersity, Udacity, and Chris has mentioned the Blackboard Open Education System as well. But then you can use your own VLE as a MOOC platform, as a technical MOOC platform as well. But I will go into the question what makes a MOOC platform really different, why it's not an idea to ditch your normal VLE for a MOOC platform. I will go into that question a little bit later. But I am actually focusing on MOOCs as an approach. So the type of course that you, or the thinking that you have when you're developing such a massive open online course. It takes a particular way to design these and to manage these things. And we at UCL have, together with other colleagues, have kind of experimented with this approach a little bit and used that for staff development. So, a massive open online course. These are the four characteristics. A MOOC is by definition massive, it's open, it's online, and it is a course. So when you think of any of these courses that you can run or take as a learner on these big platforms, then they fit this bill pretty much. What I am going to talk about will deviate from this nice little rectangular shape a little bit. And just to give an overview of the development that we've gone through in our thinking of using MOOCs for staff, of the MOOC approach for staff development. It all started in 2013-14 with the so-called BLOOC, which is the Bloomsbury Learning Environment Open Online Course, which then 1-2 years later evolved into UCL Arena Digital. UCL Arena is effectively the teaching and learning development program that UCL provides for tutors or anybody involved in teaching. And we have created a digital branch, which is effectively a set of online courses that complements the whole UCL Arena program. And we have now run 4 topics, and 2 more topics are under development at the moment. However, from this MOOC, there is another new development, which is a Get Interactive MOOC. It's such a brand new development that it hasn't started yet, but I'll tell you where to get more information a little bit later. Let's look at where it all started, which is the MOOC. And there is actually a link on the slide which you cannot click, so therefore I'm copying it into the text chat. So this runs effectively on Moodle, and you can go there, you can register freely. It's an open course, it's online, but it's not really exactly massive. So on this big spider graph, this is how it would look like. It's open, so anybody can go in there. It is a course, but we have recently transferred it to an on-demand course, so it becomes more of a resource than a tutor-facilitated course. So if you go in there now, there's no tutor to guide you through it. It's effectively a self-learning course, but the learning design is still there to guide you through the material step by step and through activities step by step. And you can still take advantage of some peer discussion in the forums. So there is some element of a course still in there. It's online, but I haven't gone all the way when I was drawing the spider graph, because we've actually run face-to-face cohorts when it was not an on-demand course. So that has taken a little bit away from the online sphere. And in terms of massiveness, yeah, Chris makes the comment, what makes a course massive. We had around, I think, 100 participants, so that's not really super massive, but it's more than just a dozen, so you would need a really, really big room in order to accommodate all these people, and that's much easier online, so you can scale it up much more quickly. Now, if we look at UCL Arena, this is a screenshot of it, and that is not an open course because you need to be a UCL staff member to access this, but it's open to all UCL staff members. So the openness has some limit there. It's even less massive than the MOOC at the moment, but we are well, we have a limited target audience there, so numbers are by default somewhat limited. But it's really super online, although we are now integrating elements of this in parts of the face-to-face training that we give to our tutors. So it takes a little bit away from the online, but it's effectively, it rather adds to the face-to-face course rather than taking away from the online element, if you understand what I mean. And it's still a course. In terms of the newest development, the Get Interactive course, well, this is going to run on Coursera, but it's not on Coursera yet, but it's supposed to start in March 2017. So keep an eye on ble.ac.uk for any news and announcements on that one. And it's the 3-week course to about practical teaching with technology. And that follows the proper MOOC approach, and we expect thousands of participants because it's on Coursera. We have the University of London International Academy in the background for that. And yeah, so this will be properly massive. It's open, it's online, and it's a course. I should also do an honorable mention. We also have our fingers in the Blended Learning Essential course, which is especially targeted towards the vocational education and training sector. And these MOOCs, it's a series of MOOCs. There are 3 different courses now, and they have run since last year, and the next one starts this year on 20th February. And it runs, as you can see, on FutureLearn. So it's, again, a proper MOOC, massive, open, and online, and a course. A series of 3 courses, indeed. So we have done quite well. Just for the sake of completeness, I should give the credit. This is effectively sponsored by the UFI, and the course has actually developed by the University of Leeds and UCL together. The Coursera URL for the Get Interactive course does not exist yet. I was hoping that we would have it for today, but unfortunately it's still going through quality assurance, so the link is not yet live. So ble.ac.uk is your best place for the announcement. So, but what do I mean when I'm talking about the MOOC approach? Now, a big part is planning, and in order to do our planning, Excel sheets are at the core, but we also use, especially for the Get Interactive MOOC and the Blended Learning Essential MOOCs, we use the tools that we've developed ourselves, such as the Learning Designer and a series of ABC workshops. Now, an Excel sheet, everything ends on Excel sooner or later when we are planning courses, because you need to break down things, and this really helps with the project management side of things, but it also gives you a really good overview because you're breaking down what learners have to do in really minute things, like 5 minutes a learner should spend on this, 10 minutes on that, only 3 minutes on that, and so on. So this is the level of granularity that we are looking at when we are deciding for learner times, or what learners spend time on. And overall, our MOOCs expect around 2, 3, 4 hours of weekly participation. So it's a low-level investment. You can get away with just investing 2 hours per week, but you should invest 2 hours per week. But that's kind of the time that people still have available when they are doing professional development. Now, this is a screenshot of our Learning Designer tool. It's an open tool, it's free, it's online, so you can go to it if you want to design something on it as well, and there's a series of videos to support you and documentation. It still hasn't reached version 1, so it's still in a kind of beta stage. But we are actually using it to project the learner experience in terms of their cognitive engagement, what type of activities they are doing. And this is where we are effectively laying out all the activities. So the Get Interactive MOOC is fully planned in the Learning Designer. And I suppose, I'm not entirely sure, but I suppose they will also present their Learning Design as a part of the MOOC. But I don't want to suppose too much. Now, the ABC workshops, it's a series of, it's effectively a face-to-face workshop. When you have a team that develops MOOCs, that's really incredibly useful, and it works on a piece of paper. There are paper cards for the different type of engagements that learners can do, different type of learning types. And when you turn around these types, you associate them to resources, what you need, what digital resources you need to implement this type of learning. And we have developed a special version for MOOCs, actually a special version for FutureLearn, where the types of tools that you have in FutureLearn can be ticked here. And at the end of the workshop, you will effectively have a series of these cards nicely laid out, and you have a visual overview of what your course looks like and these nice colors and what tools you use for that. So that takes place at the planning stage when we are designing these courses. So, and Chris also earlier mentioned the importance of course design, and we place quite a big effort on that stage of the process, because we think that's really important. Otherwise, it's easy to fall in the trap to just use the online environment as a dumping ground and not really think through the learning activities. In terms of structure of those MOOCs, here's a little comparison. The blue, the original grandfather or grandmother of all things, ran for 4 weeks with 3 hours per week of learning time investment. Now it runs on demand. It's still 4 units. You don't have to take them in 4 weeks. It's as it's on demand. Arena Digital runs per topic, and each topic runs for 2 weeks at different times. And the Get Interactive MOOC will run for 3 weeks with one topic per week. In Arena Digital, we actually took a lesson from the MOOC and we spread out one topic across 2 weeks, because then you have a better opportunity to develop and get really a little bit more into the depths of things. You can work with peer feedback much better, because when you're working online, the reaction time when somebody posts something, somebody else needs to reply, and then if you want to have a reply to the reply, then there's at least a week gone already, because people log in at different times. In terms of platforms, we do use Moodle for these two things, and as I said, Coursera is Get Interactive is on Coursera. Videos seem to be at the core of MOOCs, but we didn't really put too much effort into producing videos for these first two things, so we effectively mainly did narrated slides and did screen recordings. However, for the Get Interactive MOOC, we went the full distance and yeah, did really professional videos, so that should look quite nice as well. And I'm afraid to say that I do appear in 1 or 2 of these videos, but that's not a reason to take that Get Interactive MOOC. There are better reasons for that. I realize that I'm running out of time, but I only have 1 or 2 more slides anyway. So yeah, one interesting thing that I just want to highlight, as we were using Moodle for these first 2 bits, we were able to deploy a fuller range of different activities, whereas on the MOOC platforms, the choice of activities is rather limited. So let's have a look at platforms. If you want to use a MOOC platform for professional development, well, you can do it as we did, use just your internal VLE that you have access to, but you can also run the whole thing on Coursera and have a wider community be part of your development activity. Now you have the choice to either run it on an externally hosted platform, or there's one specific MOOC platform, OpenEdX, that you can install yourself. Now the difference between a MOOC platform and the VLE is, and it's listed in some of the cons, MOOC platforms generally lack student administration capabilities. So if you want to feed through information to any other system that your student administration system, for example, or a staff system when you're managing your staff development electronically already at your institution, then it's really, really difficult to feed any of that information through to any other systems, because these platforms tend to lack that integration. So the integration with campus infrastructure is not there. The platforms are really good when you want to scale up things in terms of learner numbers. And they are actually, I've listed as a pro that the limited feature set forces uniformity and consistency, which is one of these aspects that our learners criticize us for. And that forces also designs with reduced tutor interaction. So, I mean, Chris has said Chris, you said you spent a lot of time there on facilitating the MOOC, and now you have a team with that. But actually, these platforms here kind of expect a design where there's actually not much human interaction. So, if you design a course according to the ideas and the philosophy of these platforms, then you end up with reduced student interaction, which can be a negative because you have less human contact or less contact with a learning facilitator. Hopefully, you still have lots of peer contact. Yeah, but when you're using an externally hosted platform, then there are issues around ownership and IP, and you need to read the terms of conditions really clearly, because some platforms might not allow you to use the platforms that you're putting onto the VLE in the same format elsewhere. So be a bit aware and read through the small print. That's my tip. So as a summary, using MOOCs for professional development as an approach, we find that it actually works quite well when you're designing with a minute detail of what does a learner go through. with or without tutorial input, then you can actually design or end with a learning design where you do not spend that much time as a tutor. And as a tutor, you would effectively, or trainer, you would handle more the group as a whole instead of addressing each individual person. And you also rely on peer feedback and peer interaction. That's what the MOOC approach and the MOOC design brings, and that we find works really well. But if you are looking at replacing your VLE and just by putting everything on these MOOC platforms, probably not. For individual professional development exercises, that should work, as we have done before, as we are doing our experience with FutureLearn and the Blended Learning Essential MOOC is actually quite positive. And also we hope that the Get Interactive MOOC on Coursera will work quite well, but I wouldn't do it strategically for an internal institutional staff development program. And that is effectively all I wanted to say, and we can probably address anything else through questions and a text or general discussion.
Okay, so someone's got their hands up. So let me just have a look who's putting their hand up. Hand raised, select lower. Let's have a look. So am I doing that correct? I don't know. Could you just put your questions to both Tim and Chris in the chat for us, please? And I'm sure they will try to answer you. So let's just see if there's any questions coming up. Now, Chris, while we're waiting for people to ask questions, I just want to ask you one. Have you ever thought, I did put this in the chat earlier on, have you ever thought of doing a 12 apps of Office 365? Because we really think that this would be a wonderful resource for the whole community. I wonder if Chris and Tim could actually come back on.
Not sure if Chris wants to answer that question, but yeah, I think as a topic, Office 365 would be actually a quite nice course to have online. Because you can actually, with so many tools now available on Office 365, you can run quite interesting exercises, I think, especially, for example, with the new form tool, how to design the form, up to how to use SharePoint. However, that would be quite a challenge to break down into palatable small activities. So I think it would be a good idea.
Yeah, I agree. I totally agree as well. It would be a great idea. You could break it down. The advantage of the method or the type of MOOC that I've been talking about means that participants can share their experiences. And, you know, as Tim was talking, it's that sort of peer discussion that's really, really useful across institutions, across borders and across continents, where loads of people are using it in different ways. So to share that experience would be amazing. I mean, the only thing is just, it does involve, you know, quite a lot of time designing these courses. You know, it takes me 3 or 4 months just to do the 12 apps one. So to do something else on top of everything else would be hard, but it would be very, very good idea.
Okay, wonderful. There were some questions that were posted at the time of booking. I think Tim, you actually answered one, which was I think it was from Margaret Smith from Queen Margaret University, and she wanted to know what were the benefits of MOOC for her institution and what were the hazards. And I know that you actually covered that. You had the pros and the cons. And she said, particularly in the relation of intellectual property. So you did actually touch on that. Did you want to add anything at all to that, Chris?
Just in terms of the intellectual property of the content of the MOOCs, I mean, that's no different from anything else that a lecturer would put onto our own VLE. It is effectively the property of the university. So if we don't produce loads of original content that goes onto our MOOC anyway, but if we did, that's how it would stand in our institution.
Okay. All right. There was another question posed by Susie Peacock. Okay, she also was from Queen Margaret University, and you're welcome, Margaret. And she wanted to know about senior management. What is their perspective? So could you both give your experiences, please? We'll start with you, Tim.
Yes, certainly. Senior management, to be honest, well, as always, probably need some time and effort to be convinced. But we are actually quite lucky that, especially with our UCL Digital Arena, UCL Arena Digital, that way around, initiative, that was quite well received and also received backing pretty soon. People were initially a little bit skeptic because Arena Digital was developed by a different team than the normal UCL Arena program. And we were also a little bit concerned whether there's a clash in competencies and some battle, get off my pitch, and this type of thing. So after we ran the first 1 or 2 units, and people actually suddenly saw the value of it and understood better how these things work. And they immediately saw, hey, this is actually a really nice addition. And we are still in the development phase, establishing stronger relationships and integrating the digital component more deeply into the overall stuff development programs. But it's a step-by-step approach, and we are making headway. And so, in summary, the best way to convince people is to start doing it. And then the feedback we find speaks for itself. And also the cost effectiveness.
She just sent a little message. So she wanted to know, how did they commit? I'm not too sure. Let me just quickly go back and see what she said.
Lorraine,
Senior management response. Sorry, Chris, are you saying that you've got to go?
Yeah, I've got another meeting, so I will have to go. But just sort of one sort of parting comment, really. You know, senior management at my place, they didn't really know what I was doing at first. But obviously, when it's open and when people get to know about the course, they were very supportive. They really saw it as up to me how much time I wanted to put in, as long as it did not affect what my core job is. So they were very happy for that to continue. And also it does, because these courses are quite high profile, they bring they do bring a certain kudos to your institution as well. So when people go to other places, or I mean certainly in the world of learning tech, people know about these things, and you develop a reputation around these things. So it is an external front to the university.
How many years have you run yours for? How many years have you run yours?
So we've done
3 years.
3 years, yeah. And we'll probably do it again this year as well. Although we are thinking a bit like Glastonbury and maybe having a fallow year, but we'll see. All right, I really do have to go. Sorry, I've got a training session and I do need to be there on time, really. Okay, thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much for taking part, Chris, and I'll speak to you later.
All right, thank you.
Then.
Bye.
All right, bye. So I'm going to have to end it here, really, everybody, because we've got 1 minute left. I was going to run a poll, but I think what will happen is UCISA will send you an email and ask you to fill in a feedback form for us. I'd just like to thank all our guests and all the audience as well for your comments and your questions as well. So thank you so much for coming and joining us on the 60-minute Tech Talk, and hopefully we'll see you again soon. Please, if you want to volunteer, if you want to present something, then let me know. lbarclay@sgul.ac.uk. So thank you again to Tim and Chris for all your efforts and your time, and we'll see you again soon. Take care. Bye-bye.